Saint of the Day. November 26th. Saint Leonard of Port Maurice. Franciscan preacher and ascetic writer. Born, December 20, 1676 Porto Maurizio. Died, November 26, 1751, age 74, Rome. Venerated in Roman Catholic Church. Beatified, June 19, 1796 Pope Pius VI. Canonized, June 29, 1867 Pope Pius IX. Feast, November 26. Saint Leonard of Port Maurice was an Italian Franciscan preacher and ascetic writer. Paul Jerome Casanova was born on December 20, 1676, in Porto Maurizio, today's Imperia, then part of the Republic of Genoa. His father, a ship captain, was a man of faith. 5 of his 6 children went on to become religious. When the boy who would become Saint Leonard was 13, he went to study at the Roman College in Rome, the city where his uncle lived. He thought of entering the medical profession, but God had other plans for him, wanting to make him a doctor of souls. One day he happened to visit the church connected with the Franciscan convent of Saint Bonaventure on the Palatine Hill just as the friars were chanting Compline. At the words Convert nos Deus, Salutaris Noster, convert us, O God, our salvation, the young man was converted from his worldly aspirations to supernatural ones. Listening to God's call, he entered the Reform branch of the Franciscan order. He took his habit in 1697, taking the name of Leonard. After making his novitiate at Ponticelli, he completed his studies at the principal house of the Reform branch at San Bonaventura al Palatino in Rome. After his ordination, 1703, he remained there as a professor. Leonard longed to go to China as a missionary, for it was his great desire to convert souls for Christ and to shed his blood for the faith. However, he was soon seized with severe gastric hemorrhage, becoming so ill that he was sent to his native Porto Maurizio in the hope that he might recover his health. Saint Leonard did indeed recover, and he attributed his restoration to health to Our Lady's intercession. During his illness, he had promised that, should his prayers for recovery be granted, he would devote his life to the conversion of sinners. And he kept his promise, spending 44 years preaching popular missions, covering every section of Italy and the island of Corsica. Leonard at one time felt a certain distaste for mission work, but, after his superiors laid this duty upon him, he understood it to be the will of God, and he consecrated himself wholeheartedly to it, becoming one of the greatest missionaries and apostles in the history of the Church. He chose as the patron of his missions the great Dominican saint, preacher, and miracle worker Saint Vincent Ferrer, whose picture he also used to bless the sick. Around the age of 30, he began to preach in Port Maurice and its vicinity. Leonard's preaching was marked by many extraordinary conversions. The power of his words, coupled with his holiness and extraordinarily austere and penitential life, made a deep impression on even the most hardened sinners. Saint Leonard used to preach to many thousands in open squares in every town where he went. The churches were too small to contain the multitudes. Entire towns flocked to hear his sermons, so that it was not uncommon to see crowds of 15,000 to 20,000 gatherings listen to the saint. Miraculous conversions followed his preaching everywhere. Saint Leonard preached several times a day, heard confessions for countless hours, gave advice, established peace between warring factions, all without neglecting his prayers, including 3 hours of mental prayer each day, celebrating daily Mass with great devotion and precision, and saying the divine office on his knees. The saint stressed the importance of the practice of maintaining oneself in the presence of God at all times. He recommended people to exclaim many times throughout the day, and especially at the beginning of every action, "My Jesus, mercy." That way they can pray always, even amidst their daily occupations, and do everything with pure intention, looking to God alone in every action they perform. In 1716 he founded the Solitude of Saint Mary of Incontro near Florence, a house of retreat where the friars could retire from time to time to renew their spiritual strength, applying themselves seriously, in silence and great austerities, to the work of their own sanctification. The religious would withdraw there in turn, to then return to their convents and missionary labors filled with renewed zeal to work for the glory of God and salvation of souls. Leonard was superior in Florence and Prato for over 20 years before returning to Rome in 1736 to become guardian of the convent of Saint Bonaventure. He was an austere, reserved, and silent man, but also kind and patient in his treatment of others. The devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and in particular the Immaculate Conception, perpetual adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, and devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus were some of the topics he promoted. It was Saint Leonard who composed, especially as a reparation for the sin of blasphemy, the divine praises we say at the end of every benediction: Blessed be God, blessed be His holy name. It is to Saint Leonard we owe the devotion of the Stations of the Cross. Wherever he went he promoted the Via Crucis. Not a mission went by without him leading the people in this pious meditation on the Passion of our Lord. Saint Leonard erected 571 Stations of the Cross throughout Italy, including the famous stations at the Colosseum in Rome. While Saint Leonard's great life work was the mission, he also preached many retreats both to religious and lay people. The theme was most often the Passion of Christ. He wrote that one of the cures for the ills of men and of society was a daily meditation on the Passion. It would bring people back in touch with reality, rearrange their priorities, and put everything into proper perspective, causing them to grow in love for Christ. Saint Leonard's love for Our Lady led him to ardently desire to see and do his utmost to procure the dogmatic definition of her Immaculate Conception. He called this the most important cause in the world because every other good depended on it: peace, happiness, triumph over heresies, the triumph of the Church. He urged prelates to petition Rome for this. The strains of his missionary labors and severe mortifications completely exhausted Saint Leonard's body. After his missions in Lucca and Bologna, he was stricken by fever but nevertheless journeyed back to Rome in obedience to the wishes of Pope Benedict XIV, who made him promise he would not die in any other city but Rome. Even in his last days, half dead, the saint insisted on saying Mass, though with the greatest difficulty, for a single Mass is worth more than all the wealth of the world. On November 26, 1751, Saint Leonard arrived at his beloved monastery of Saint Bonaventure in Rome, dying that same evening at 11 p.m., at the age of 75. Great crowds came to see and venerate his body. God glorified him in life but still more after his death by numerous miracles. His, still partially incorrupt, body was kept at the high altar of the Church of San Bonaventura at Palatino until 1997, when it was transferred to his native town. There it can be seen, in a glass urn, at the Cathedral of Imperia Porto Maurizio. Only a relic of one of his ribs remains at the Church of Saint Bonaventure in Rome. At the adjacent convent, one can visit the saint's former cell, transformed into a little museum. Saint Leonard was beatified by Pius VI in 1796. Blessed Pius IX, a Franciscan tertiary, canonized him in 1867. He was named the patron saint of parish missionaries by Pius XI. Saint Leonard left us many writings, the most well-known of which is his beautiful book about the most precious treasure we have on earth, the Mass, the hidden treasure. His sermons, letters, ascetic and devotional writings have been preserved, but only a small part has been translated to English. His most famous sermon, "The Little Number of Those Who Are Saved," was the one he relied on for the conversion of great sinners. His feast day is November 26.